Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, or as we like to call it, the Triad Podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. And I want to end... first of all, Jess says, also control of language. That's true. Orwell talks about the control of language.
Yeah,
so
big part.
There is no bad, only good. Yeah. She says there is no bad, only good, which means there's no good either. It's just all meh. So
yeah,
or double good, or double plus good. That's right. I forgot about that. There's double good. That is a great segue, actually, into this last segment, because the importance of words. That was somebody very important to me always emphasized. So this week, a mentor figure of mine, his name was Joe Cristiano, passed, and I wanted to kind of give him a send-off, pay my respects, I suppose, and I wanted to, I wanted to talk about that. So Joe ran a show called Liberty Talk Radio, and he was on the radio for a while, and then it transitioned to just to doing podcast. And it was at a very interesting time because people were beginning to suspect that, the old media was on the way out. And they didn't know how big podcasting was going to be. And so, there was just a lot of... Joe was able to introduce me to a lot of neat people. And, he took me in when I didn't know anything about anything. And he showed me a lot. And, Jess says, R.I.P. Joe. Yeah. He showed me a lot. I remember, and this is just, he called it serendipity. I call it providence. And we argued about that. And, you haven't lived until you've seen a hick from the Ozarks and an Italian from Harlem argue about God, government, and false flags. So, but we would go back and forth all the time. And it's just, the way that we met is crazy. So I was in the middle of writing one of the books that's going to come out later, like the early version of a book that's coming out later this year. And it was the original premise of the whole series, the Animals of Psalm series, was, monsters and conspiracy theories. I wanted to put them all together in one book. And so that was when I first started listening to Alex Jones. And I didn't believe Alex Jones much at this point, but I was bemused by him. But Jess did think I bought into all this, all the Alex Jones stuff. And so one day she's working at this health food store, and she hears Joe and Gary. They're talking in this store, and she goes, "Hey, my husband's into all that conspiracy theory stuff." And they're like, "Well, have him on our radio show." And I went on the radio show. It was just that simple. It was that quick, and it was...
Yeah.
The first episode was it was when Edward Snowden had come out and said, that the government was spying on citizens. And so that was...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was the first time I'd been on there. And so I had this big speech, and I'd written it out, and Joe let me read it on air, and he was very bemused, And he took me out afterwards, after the show was over, fed me dinner, and we talked, and I don't know why, but I don't know what he saw in me, but he decided to take a chance on me, I guess, and invested a lot of time in me. And, he took me to networking meetings. I got to meet really rich people, and people that were just selling Amway, and all this stuff. And, it was just... Started going to the network meetings with him and did the show every other week when it was on the radio, and then eventually helped him with the podcast. And he just always, one of the main things he taught me on the subject of Orwell, he taught me the importance of being very clear and defining your terms. That was always a big thing with him. I remember, because at the time I wanted to be an actor, right? And I remember he just pulls me to the side after one of the radio shows, and he's like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's your goal? What do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to make it as an actor. And he's like, define make it. And, it was one of the first times in my life anybody had ever actually challenged me to define a word with clarity, Yeah. And I told him, I said, okay, well, my definition of make it is I want to be able to just pick up a script. I don't want to have to audition. I want people to call me and offer me roles. That's my definition of making it. And he just looked shocked that I was able to come up with the definition of at all. But, we would have conversations like that, and we'd argue about God all the time. And, but he was always about clarity. And so I wanted to take a moment, if you guys will indulge me, and I wanted to just kind of play a video montage I made of his. And,
if you don't mind me asking, what was the name of his podcast?
His radio show was Liberty Talk Radio.
Oh, okay.
And he would have been quite in line with Cody's sentiments as far as not being a big fan of Israel. Like we disagreed on a lot, but Joe always listened, and he was, for as harsh as he could be sometimes, he was willing to be self-deprecating. He was willing to let you have your say. And he just demanded that you define what you mean, And he was just one of the best. I don't know how else to put it, He was just.
That's good, because I've found in my experience that sometimes when you have an idea, it's like half thought out, right?
Yeah.
And so when somebody tells you to define it, it's like, oh, I have to actually think about this all the way through.
Yeah.
And a lot of your thoughts are just trash, dude. Just junk.
Yeah, you don't realize how little you actually understand about things.
Yeah.
Until you're forced into a corner and you have to actually be super specific about your terms. And Joe was always very big on that. He was always.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hats off to Joe.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was a really great guy. And so let me get this going, and I just want to play this really quick for him. So
we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. I know that sounds so revolutionary, to be revolutionary in thought, but dissidents in action. That doesn't mean you're supposed to go out into the street and start rioting, but our thought process should be revolutionary, just like our forefathers and how they arrived at the Constitution itself. So I want you to be a revolutionary thought, but a dissident in action. I don't want you to comply with every government rule because the government says you have to do it. It's our God-given right, our inalienable rights, to stand up for our individual rights of freedom.
You're about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Good morning, folks. I have to admit that I had a very traumatic week. I'd like to share just some of it with you, although I don't mean to bore you and inject my personal affairs into your life. I think this may be important. On Thursday, I was home ironing. You heard me right, I was ironing. You ask, why would a macho guy like me be ironing? Well, if you met my wife, you'd say, well, boy, she's a pretty gal. She's intelligent. She's got a nice personality. Why would she be married to Joe? I do the ironing. Now you know, the whole world knows, okay? She's really a sharp gal. She knows when she's got a good thing going. I do the ironing, and I'm really good at it. I get her blouses and straight the sleeves. I got these, knife edge creases on it. I'm really good. Been doing it for decades so far. She loves it. I tell you, what also happens, though, is that word got out around the neighborhood that I do the ironing. As a result, all the women in the neighborhood all of a sudden started getting friendly with me. They call me, they go, "Oh, hi, Joe, how are you?" All of a sudden, they're really friendly. I couldn't figure it out. They've never been this friendly before. In fact, you have no idea. They call me, they say, "You want to come over? I just baked some cookies. I have cupcakes. You want to come over and have one of my cupcakes?" I say, "No, I don't think so." In fact, on Thursday while I was ironing, a woman came to my house and she said, "Hi, Joe." I said, "Yeah, what do you want?" She said, "I just made some cannolis. You're Italian, you like cannolis? I got cannolis for you. You want to come over and have one of my cannolis?" I said, "No, I don't want one of your cannolis. I know why you're asking. You want me to do your laundry and your ironing. I'm not doing it." I slammed the door shut. I went back to my ironing. What happens? All of a sudden, I hear chanting on the front door, banging on the front door. "Come over for my cupcakes. Come over for my cookies. Cannolis, cannolis." It's driving me nuts. I can't iron because I hear all this throbbing in the background. I had this peaceful day. Now I have a bunch of women out there wanting me to do their ironing for them, and I don't want to do it. So what do? I made a classic mistake. Classic, folks. Don't ever try this at home. Don't ever try this at home. I turned on the television. I know, I don't watch TV. I turned on the television. I turned it on, even with the chanting in the background, just to drown out the noise, and I put it really loud so I wouldn't have to hear these women in the background. "Oh, eat my cannolis." I don't want to eat your cannolis. I want to be left alone. I'm almost finished my ironing, but I had to listen to the television because I wasn't finished yet. What's on TV? The news. Oh, my goodness gracious. I hate the news on TV. It confuses me. In fact, it bothers me to a point I usually don't even sleep that night. There's this woman. She's interviewing this high-level government official, senior official, Mr. Muckety-Muck. I don't know what his name was. Now, it's amazing that these news reporters, female news reporters, look like they all stepped out of the pictures of Vogue magazine. She was gorgeous. I know I'm saying that on the air. It's not right. They'll tell me to stop saying things like that. But this woman was a knockout. I don't know how she got a job as a reporter. Anyway, she asked a question of this senior elected official. He was a chairman, like they're all chairman of something that we don't understand. Only they understand they make a lot of money. This guy was the chairman of not the Appropriations Committee, but something like the Linguistics Committee or something. I couldn't figure out. I think it was called the Gymnastics Committee. He was subcommittee chairman. And she asked him whether or not she thought that a certain legislation that they had been referring to would be passed. Folks, I was all right up until then. And this is what his answer was. He said, "I'm cautiously optimistic. I went blind in my left eye. I couldn't take it. Cautiously optimistic. That didn't register. My brain said, tilt, that doesn't exist. While you're listening to the television, turn it off before your brain shuts down. Cautiously optimistic. I'm getting dizzy. I can't think. I keep on thinking, cautiously optimistic. What does that mean? You're optimistic or you're cautious? You're cautious, you're optimistic. It goes round and round. It's like perpetual motion, and I'm going nuts. I'm getting dizzy. I have to hold on to the ironing board. I'm going to my knees. Crawl. I crawl to the dictionary. Yes, I know you find this hard to believe. I own a dictionary. It's called Merriam-Webster. I don't know if Merriam or Webster wrote these definitions. Don't care. In fact, I don't even care if it was Merriam or Webster's dinosaur dog. You say, how do I know they had a dinosaur dog. How do I know that? Because they named it Thesaurus, that's why. And anything named Thesaurus has got to be prehistoric. So I look up the dictionary, cautious. Here's the definition from either Merriam or Webster. It says, implies the exercise of forethought, usually prompted by fear of danger. Oh my goodness gracious. It confirmed my worst nightmare. My brain can't even function at this point. The exercise of forethought, usually prompted by fear of danger. I had to look up optimistic, put this whole thing together. Optimistic, an inclination to put the most favorable construction upon actions and events. Put those two together, what do you get? You know what you get? You get a cannoli. That's all you get. It makes no sense. And yet, the worst part of this interview is after he said, I'm cautiously optimistic. This supermodel reporter girl that I'm falling in love with by looking at her, what did she say? She said, thank you. Oh my God, I can't say it. Thank you for your insight. Back to you, Bob. I went to my knees. I can't take it anymore. People in America are watching television. You know what they say? Oh, I keep informed. I watch the news. And I go, you must be watching a news that I've never heard of before, because when I watch the news, I go blind in my left eye. How could you watch that stuff? They say, well, I learn what's going on. Oh my God. Could you imagine? Could you imagine people saying, I learn what's going on. I keep informed by watching the news. Think about that. When every time you say that to yourself, think of cautious optimism. Cautious optimism. You have just got to have a brain problem with that.
When I was forced to go into, and I literally forced to go into talk radio on the internet, and I have a studio at home. From that evolved into being here on 1170 KFAQ, which I really appreciate. I love these guys here. And from that, of course, I have an agent, who's clinically insane, but he's a hell of a nice guy. He decided, he said, let's have a website with you guys. We videotape you, this. I said, okay, and, he sent me the bill, and I'll pay him $13 a month for the rest of my life. But from that, I was chosen to be in the movie as a talk show host because I was on the. I mean, my point being is that you got to keep on doing things. And the reason why I mention that is that everyone talks about jobs. They can't find jobs. I never had that problem, and I never applied for a job. I don't want to apply for a job. I was always doing something. And as a result, I always knew people and fell into things. Coming home, in fact, just last night, we were coming home, and we saw a guy with a small portable snow removal machine. A small little thing. And two guys, in fact. And they had this pickup truck, and my wife stopped the car she was driving. She said, would you do our house? We live right up the block. He said, oh, sure. He said, I do a lot of work in this area. I do gardening, and I do landscaping and snow removal. Sure. He said, I know your house. Yeah, I meant to stop over and stop to see you guys. She says, well, how much would you charge to remove all the snow from our driveway? I'll move the cars. He said, $25. Man, what a deal that was, because there was snow ice piled all over the place. And my point being is serendipity showed up. That happened to be my wife and I, right? And then when he got there, my wife says, well, what about doing the walkway around the house and this place and that? He wound up cleaning up the whole place for $50. Now, it's a lot of money, $50. But what it would have taken me at my age to do, I probably would have died doing it, it was well worth it. My point is that he's there. There is work out there. And the way he got this customer, being us, is just being there, doing something. That's my point. No one's doing anything anymore. We need to get out there and do something. I don't care what it is.
Eventually, serendipity will show up and say, by the way. And when they say, by the way, you know you've nailed it. So there are jobs out there. And it's not jobs, it's work. There is work out there. And you don't have to apply for a large corporation and sit home and wait to see if your application has been approved. I never fill out an application. I don't want to fill out an application. I don't care about applications. I don't want to work for this stupid company. I want to do something. I want to produce something. I want to create something. And that's the way it works. And that's where serendipity comes in. Don't put your name in and say, well, I can't find the job, so I guess I'll have to apply for McDonald's, make $7.25 an hour, and then I can go on strike and tell them they're not paying me. Oh, garbage, shut up. All you people just shut up. I can't stand you anymore. I can't stand the language. I can't stand the storyline that I hear. Well, they don't pay a living wage. Well, then get a job that pays them the living wage. Get a job that pays a living wage. Why don't you do that? Well, I can't because I don't have any skills and I don't work very well and I'm a drunk. Well, that's a good reason. You're lucky to get $7.25 an hour, you bum. I mean, you could imagine you get a job with a company and you say, hey, we pay $7.25 an hour. Okay, I'll take it. And then as soon as you get the job, I'm going on strike. It only pays $7.25 an hour. Well, what about $7.25 did you not understand when you took the job in the first place? Unbelievable. I mean, these people, they should all go in a shredder. They're just so stupid, they shouldn't be part of this country. Transfer them someplace else. They got to pay me a living wage. Well, what if you had 9 kids? We're going to pay you $75 an hour? For empty boxes of peas and corn? I mean, it's so stupid. And what bothers me is this stupid system that we have of all these news broadcasts. They talk about it as if it's an intelligent conversation. Well, Walmart's only paying $7.25 an hour, and we're going to interview. You idiot, why even talk about it? Why don't you get out there and say, hey, numbnuts, did you apply for this job at $7.25 an hour? Yeah, I sure did. Well, did you accept the job at $75 an hour? Yeah, I sure did. Then what the hell are you going on strike for? I really don't know. Of course, my friend Bobby told me to do it with him. We had a lot of fun out here, to give us free lemonade. That's how stupid it is. And yet the American public and the American is so stupid, so incredibly stupid, they sit by the television, brainwashed, listening to this crap, and then when they go to coffee with their friends and have their $4.75 latte, they go, Walmart only pays $7.25 an hour. They should pay a living wage. Well, let me tell you something. Walmart should start everyone at $35 an hour. How about that? I want 30. Not as 15. You weenie. You got 3 kids at home. And you took a job at $15 an hour. You're a weenie. You need $35 an hour and you still won't make it. Because you got all that stupid Christmas shopping and crap to buy. And you owe $15,000 on your credit card. How are you going to do that at $15 an hour? It's unbelievable. I can't believe, this is not the United States of America. This is Stupidville. I'm not an American. I'm not. I'm a Zorgite. I'm going back to Zorg. I'm building my own rocket ship. And I'm going back to Zorg. Now, you know what Zorg is? Zorg is like this country. Thank you. I got a bunch of clowns here. Give me I get no respect. No respect at all. I tell you, I get no respect from anybody. Hey, you kidding me? My point is this. No, my point is this. Is that I'm going back to Zorg, folks. I'm not. Hopefully, I'll be back next week. Are we over with this program?
Just about. You got about 45 seconds. 45
seconds. Okay. Well, anybody who wants to go to Zorg with me, send me an email to comments at Liberty Talk Radio. We're going to have a sign-up sheet. We're going to build a rocket ship, and we're all getting off this crazy planet, And on Zorg, there ain't no Walmarts, okay? All right. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody. This is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. Folks, you can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments at libertytalkradio.com. Thank you for listening, and Stay well, stay tuned.
I am going to miss that man a lot. So
Sorry for your loss, sir.
no, it just I wanted to bring it up because he didn't have to take an interest in some random kid they didn't know from Adam, and he did. And when you meet somebody like that, you need to hang on to them because it's really, really rare for people to just help you without expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have to do any of that, and he didn't have to do any of the things he did for me, and I will be forever appreciative for him. And Joe, you're one of the good ones, and I pray to God that someday I will be in a position to take some kid who wants it and do for him what you did for me. So you're one of the best. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.